Okay, so we've made it this far in the year without a lot of people having issues with Repl.it because we haven't been using multiple files at a time. Now that we're getting into inputting and outputting files and doing things of that nature, it's getting a little more complicated. There's some extra steps we need to take to make sure this stuff works. In the past, we just change the name of our files to main and then it works, because in Repl.it it actually works correctly in that it only runs a class or a file called main. That's how it is in the real world. We just don't really have to worry with it when we're in Eclipse, which is why I kind of like Eclipse. But let's look at how we would make this work in Repl.it, since we still have 10 weeks left of school, and I know that there's going to be some people that are going to be using Repl.it on and off. What we're going to do is grab our three files that we're going to need. These are three example files that we have. We're looking at read sales 2, and write sales. I'm going to drag them and I'm going to drop them. Actually, before I do that, I got to make my repel. We're going to repel it. We're going to call this loops.io, I think is what we called it. Okay, now I'm going to drag and drop them inside Repl.it. Keep the main class. Keep the main.py because we're going to use that. We're going to keep these like this because we want to keep them together for simplicity. They all are dealing with the same idea, so we want to keep them together. But we can't run them as is. It's cool that they have main methods. That's not or main functions. That's not a big deal. But what we're going to have to do is make these not run that main class or that main function. Okay, so we're going to take this part out, and we're actually going to run this function. We're going to call it and run it from inside this main class here. Okay, so we're going to go in each of these files and take out where I had put in the execution of main right here, and we're going to actually call it, like I said, from inside main.py instead. And I'll show you how to do this. Before we begin, though, I think you may have an error here. If you downloaded this file late, I don't know why this happened, but I had not converted this I to a string here, and so I was getting an error. So if you downloaded this file late, write_sales, you may need to add in this conversion to a string. So go ahead and do that because I was getting an error there. That's my fault. I think I had it and then I was talking about something and changed it, never changed it back. So if you're getting that error, change that. Everything else should work fine. Let's go to main.py and I'm going to show you how you can run all three of these files from the main class here. The first thing you have to do is import the file itself. So the first one that we want to run is going to be the write sales. So we're going to import write sales. I think that's all I need. Okay, so it says write sales imported but not used. We can go ahead and import the other three. It's not a big deal. It's not going to do anything with them until we tell it to. But we can go ahead and write those lines. So what that does essentially is it gives main.py access to the other three files. Okay, so main.py cannot see these or use them unless we tell it it has access. And that's what these import statements do, is they give it access to those files. So now main.py can actually see every function, every variable, everything that I have inside of these files. With that in mind, it means that I can run any function that's in these files. So I can run this main function here and write sales right from this file, because this is the file that Repl.it is going to look for when you hit the run button. Here's how we do it. So if we simply just want to run the write sales file, and that's it, here's how we would do it. We would say write_sales. which is the name of the file, but then we're going to put a dot, and we're going to tell it the exact function that we want to call, and the function that we want to call is main. So we're saying look inside write sales here and run the main function. Okay, hit run. Let's see, no module did I? Oh, read sales too. Okay. All right, so it's running. It's running the main function inside write sales. How many days do I have sales for? We'll say 2. Let's say we're just making up numbers to put in for the sales for those days. Now you'll notice that the file that it wrote in this sales.txt saved and got written. So if I open that up, we've got the 2 numbers that I entered in. To go it a little bit further, to take it a little bit further, let's look at what we're going to do next. So next we want to run one of these, either one. The read sales is showing us how we can use a while loop to process the file. The read sales 2 is going to use a simpler for loop. Okay, let's do the read sales first. I don't want to run this again, so all I'm going to do is change the name of this to read sales, and that way everything's still imported, but it's only going to run the read sales main method, and then it just it loops through and regurgitates what's on the file for me. If I run read sales 2, it's going to do the same thing. Only read sales 2, like I said, is running a for loop.